I have been drawing upon a wealth of computer books for the Commodore 64, which you can download for free at this address here. And most of these are 35 plus years old. The book that I'm referring to mostly is here, which is the newer version of this book, and it came with some software. So if you want to follow along here, you can download the PDF for free, and also download the accompanying software that came with the book. Probably first thing you're thinking, well, why don't I just get a modern book and throw a bunch of money at it and it will be free of errors? Yeah, that'll be the day. So basically, you read one programming book and it has some erroneous code, and then you can go and compare that with another programming book, and somewhere between the two, you have your Rosetta Stone and can come up with some actual working code. So here I've got the PDF, and the book, as I said, came with a cassette that had all of the software back on it. Way back in the old days, a cassette was one method of storing data, and you'd get this device here, and you could load data off of the cassette onto your Commodore 64. The other option, of course, was the floppy uh, disk drive. Let me go look at this here. There's what a floppy looked like. And they called them floppy because you could bend this. It was like really soft plastic. Later, of course, they had the 3-inch floppies that you may be more familiar with. They still called them floppies, although the 3-inch ones didn't flop. This was pretty soft and floppy, about 6 inches or so. But I digress. Here I am going to then go to my C64 emulator, and I've already downloaded the disk image that came with the book. And the way you load that is you go attach disk image to virtual drive 8 I'm going to use, and the book is published by Hayden, so it's called Hayden Assembler here, and I'm going to load that, and now it's in the computer's memory. So now to load it, you go in quotations $, and then tell it which drive to look on, 8. There. And that just takes a second, and I can list what's on the virtual disk image, and it's got a couple programs on there, and we want this assembler here. So I am going to go load quotation C64, and you don't have to type all of this. I can just add an shift asterisk, and that says C64 anything. There. I'll go comma, tell it which virtual disk to look on, and load it. And now that will take a moment to load all of the code. Da, 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 little elevator music to keep your mind occupied there. There we go. It's all loaded. Now it says ready, so I can run the program. And there we go. Press space to continue. I'm going to keep this minimized so that I can still look at my code here in the background. Let me jump down to the first code example in the book. Here we go. So this assembler that came with the book uses its own kind of proprietary commands, a little bit different than what we're using today on CBM Studio and other assemblers, but we're just going to run with that, shall we? Okay, so if I go here to Vice, move it over so I can actually see the code a bit. It says E to enter program. I'm going to go E. It says start address. The book recommends 828, so I'm just going to go by the book here. And then the question mark means go ahead and write the first line of code. This is LDX, which we haven't actually covered yet, but I'm loading into the X register a value, and it's actually LDXIM is the command in this book, which would be LDX pound value. So the equivalent of this in a modern assembler, LDX hashtag 1. See. So I'm just to translate here. Store what's in the X accumulator into, whoops, I'm talking and trying to think at the same time, into 900. There. And then LDA, immediate mode, which that would be #2, LDA #2, and then add with carry the value stored in memory location 900. Then it says to store that in memory location 901. Well, that's not real useful because nothing will happen when you run the program. Why don't we instead store that in 1024 and print it to the screen? We'll go RTS to return back to basic, and then when you're done using this particular assembler, you type end and it will exit, and you hit any key to go back to the main menu. Now it says I could list my program L. Where is it? It's at 828. Yada, yada, yada. There it is. I said maybe in an earlier tutorial that this program book came with a disassembler. No, it doesn't disassemble, but it shows you the dump, assembly dump, similar to what you see in CBM, and there's the memory locations listed in both decimal format and hexadecimal for your convenience. Okay, so there's the assembly code we entered and the equivalent values in hexadecimal that are stored into the computer's memory. Let me just hit any key to get out of there. It says to run program, you hit R, and that is at 828, and it prints a value to the screen. Now, this in the glorious tradition of most programming books, the very first bit of code that you run is erroneous. I added a 1 and a 2 together, and it gave me ABCD, which would be the value 4. So, okay, great. Again, you look at one book and then you compare it to another book, and then maybe you go on a forum and you post, hey, how do you do this? And they write back, well, obviously you do not have enough education to understand the difference between signed and unsigned numbers mathematics. So a lot of help they are on the forums. But I happen to know what the problem is here. He did some mathematics and he did add with carry and didn't clear the carry. So why don't we do this correctly? I'm just going to translate what I have found in the book. Very first thing I want to do, clear the carry. Okay. LDXIM1. Store X in memory location 900. LDAIM2. And then add with carry the value that is stored in memory location 900. Now, any math operation is going to end up in the accumulator. So, I mean, here we could have just as easily done LDA 1 store A in memory location. There wouldn't really be any conflict because then we load A with a new number, So whatever, 6 or 1/2, a dozen the other. ADC. Then he tells you to store that to an arbitrary memory location, which is, of course, useless because it doesn't do anything. We will go RTS to end the program and then type end to get out of the assembler. Press any key to continue. I didn't press it hard enough, apparently. There we go. Run the program is R. type memory location that you stored it in, and there is your correct answer. So there you go. You can go out and throw $39.95 at a brand new book, and guess what? It will be as erroneous as books written 40 years ago, believe it or not. So everything is with a grain of salt. That's kind of why I'm doing these videos. I mean, you can download all kinds of free programming books. No guarantee that any of them are going to be 100% error-free ever, you know. So here I am making videos. I have a bit of astigmatism, so it's actually irritating for me to read books anymore, so I do prefer videos and concise explanations, so that is why I'm kind of posting videos of everything that I'm learning kind of as I'm learning it. I make no uh, claim that I'm any kind of expert in assembly. I'm just going along, kind of learning this and that and documenting everything as I learn it. And then maybe a year or two down the line, if I want to go back and do some more assembly on the C64, I have my own video tutorial. So this is just as much for my own edification as yours. I hope these video tutorials are useful to you as well. Thank you.